Здравствуйте, дорогие друзья.
Hello everyone, it's me Heydar with you, and we are in Shusha as you see. Today I have a very interesting, very special guest for you. His name is John Spencer and he's an American officer. He's a researcher also working for the Modern War Institute. It's one of the leading American military think tanks, and John has been studying the conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh for quite a long, and today he's here with us in Shusha to share his ideas and perceptions.
На тему карабахского конфликта, который он уже долгое время проводит.
John W. Spencer currently serves as the chair of Urban Warfare Studies at the Modern War Institute, co-director of the Urban Warfare Project and host of the Urban Warfare Project podcast. He served over 25 years in the army as an infantry soldier, having held ranks from private to sergeant first class and second lieutenant to major. His assignments as an active duty army officer included 2 combat deployments to Iraq as both an infantry platoon leader and company commander, a ranger instructor with the Army's Ranger School, a joint chief of staff and army staff intern, fellow with the chief of staff of the Army's Strategic Studies Group, strategic planner, and then deputy director of the Modern War Institute, where he was instrumental in the design and formation of the institute. Also, currently John serves as a colonel in the California State Guard with assignment to the 40th Infantry Division. California Army National Guard as Director of Urban Warfare Training. His research here focuses on military operations in dense urban areas, megacities, urban and subterranean warfare. He is an international recognized subject matter expert in urban warfare that regularly consults for United States Army Forces Command Units, Training and Doctrine Command, Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, United Nations, and many other military and national security organizations. Holds a Master of Policy Management from Georgetown University. He is the author of Connected Soldiers, Potomac Books, forthcoming spring 2022. Lives in Colorado Springs, CO, with his wife and 3 children. Modern War Institute at the West Point Military Academy is one of the leading American think tanks focusing on research in theory and history of war and applied war studies integrated in modern foreign and defense policy of the US.
Hi, John.
Hey,
Welcome to Shusha.
thank you so much.
Let's go. Let's see. We're in the castle at the moment. Welcome to Shusha once again. And as I know, you're an expert in urban warfare and the think tank. May I call it a think tank? That's
Yeah,
your
sure.
head?
A research center, think tank.
The think tank that you're working in, it's called like the Modern War Institute.
That's right.
And you're chairing the urban warfare dimension there. You've been in the US Army and you used to be a commanding officer. How come that the Karabakh conflict draws your interest, and how many years are you in this topic in general?
So I've been studying academically urban warfare for about 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
I served 25 years in the U.S. Army, like you said, as an infantry officer. I had my own experiences with urban warfare, and then I started as an academic studying it. So now I study all of them, all the battles from ancient history to Shusha, which I think is the most relevant current urban war of this generation almost.
As I said, you have been a commanding officer for quite a time and you have seen yourself urban warfare. What is your experience? Where have you been? What sort of urban warfare have you been part of?
Yeah, so I did 2 years in Iraq, 1 year in 2003, and I jumped in as a paratrooper in the north, and then we went to urban fighting around the northern city of Kirkuk, and then my whole tour basically was urban. Then I went back in 2008 though, and I went to Baghdad, and I was involved in a major battle called the Battle of Sadr City. So Sadr City, a part of Baghdad, but a very dense urban fighting for a year.
You have seen the urban warfare yourself. You took part in fighting in Sadr City. Let's go to some theory. What makes urban warfare so different, so difficult, and what's the major mood of the urban warfare, urban fighting?
Yes. So what I'd say is that urban warfare or fighting urban areas is the hardest that any military could do. The hardest place you could have fighting, and the reason for that across history is that the buildings create obstacles and great defensive positions. And then there's people, and the cost of the war usually is higher than any other environment. So the cost to the soldiers and to the people and the city itself.
So you mean it doesn't matter who you are, defender or an attacker, there will be losses anyway in an urban warfare. You can't avoid them almost.
Absolutely. And the damage, what we say across history, that it, like you said, attacker or defender, it almost, we say the defender has the advantage. So if you can get into the urban area first, usually you have an advantage and you may not lose as much.
Okay.
But usually that means that the attacker will use a lot more force, bombs. So it becomes almost hell, combat. We call it concrete hell.
Exactly.
As opposed to jungle fighting or mountain fighting, where there is different abilities to hide, but just the nature of the urban built-up area creates so many difficulties for both sides. And then there's also the fact that there's people and protected sites, mosques and churches and things that you don't want
Collateral damage
to destroy. And in the rules of law, you can't destroy. So it just makes it harder for the militaries to fight.
Okay, and one more point, urban warfare usually means close combat. Does it mean that your fire support, even if you're like rich in artillery, air support, etc., you cannot use them the way you would like to, because you're too close to your enemy?
Absolutely. So we call the urban area the great equalizer.
Oh, okay.
It means that our modern militaries, no matter who you are, they want to attack the enemy as far away as possible. Well, the urban area makes it so that's not possible because you can't see. You have to get close. So you immediately the weapons you want to use, you can't, because you have to get so close to find out where they are. And then once you're so close, we call it hugging is a term. You can't use those systems, so it becomes, like you said, almost every time this very close fight that nobody wants to do, but what becomes necessary because most of modern technologies, it becomes less effective in this environment, let alone when the weather comes in.
We'll talk about weather, and we'll talk about the fighting in downtown Shusha as we'll walk around the town and we'll see it. One question is about the success factors. We have been talking about the urban warfare, and Shusha operation is one of the cases. Let's walk over there to the castle walls. John, what are the critical success factors for urban warfare success in theory? Let's not talk about Shusha so far.
So one of the, especially in modern times, the success goes to the person who has a better plan. And that's any environment. He has a better plan, and then he has the ability to combine all his capabilities. We call them combined joint fighting. So he has the ability to combine special forces, aerial assets, artillery, mortars. The side that can combine all those together, we call it combined arms.
Okay.
The most effectively usually wins and has the advantage. And that's what leads to success, is a better trained militaries that combine their forces. Like even the US military, like in the Battle of Fallujah, they were successful because they combined all their assets together. It's not, a lot of people think that urban fighting is just an infantry fight, but it's not.
Interesting.
Yeah. They think it's an infantry fight because they've always seen the clearing of the houses in a close fight, which it does become that, but it's
part of the picture.
It's part of the picture, but you need artillery, you need aerial assets, you need mobile protected firepower like armor. You need good plans to not fight the way the enemy wants you to fight.
Yeah, interesting. Let's go to the castle walls, please. John, you numbered several success factors like combined force that includes everything. But the Karabakh conflict has been in the middle of attention from international experts, war studies, academicians, etc. And there are a number of success factors that have been mentioned by various people. Majority of them, they accentuate military technical advantage that Azerbaijani side had. But what interests me, the conceptual advantages or other factors apart from military technical that's brought to the success of Shusha operation. Do you have any ideas about that?
Yeah, so that's the only reason I decided to study Shusha, really, is in the West, in America, and in other places, all the what we say analysis. All the reports were about the technology, about the drones and the advanced air assets and all of that. And I felt what was being missed was the urban fight, what we call a decisive fight, something that wins a war. To me, Shusha and the plan and the way the fight happened was the decisive operation of the entire war.
Because it also was at the end of the war, it was like the final stage of
it. Led to the victory.
Yes.
And we say that's a decisive operation. And it was about a critical piece of terrain. It wasn't about destroying the enemy, which is another aspect of a lot of everybody's analysis, is that they had better technology that could kill the enemy better. This was about the rapid ability to get to terrain and hold it.
Hold it, and also there was maybe there was moral and psychological factor about the place that was held, and that it also like was a break-even point maybe also.
Absolutely, and that's what you see if you, as I started to study the war, there's so much more going on here about planning, deception, not just messaging, but this city should not have been able to be defeated. In my analysis, as an urban warfare expert,
very interesting.
This is a fortress.
So John, you mean Armenians had a chance. In which way? It's very interesting what they could do.
So any urban area, we say the defender has the advantage, but even specifically to this urban area, this fortress on a cliff, it could have been defended by a very small force with the right planning. The ability to hide your capabilities in the urban space, hide your artillery, your infantry, and to set up ambushes and make anybody who comes into the city pay is historic. And what usually happens is we say you need 5 times the amount of force that the defender has in order to even achieve an ideal of an attack. But this is the high ground, and history shows these ancient cities that can hold out for years from sieges or from attacks because the ground is so important as a defender. It should have been
held.
It should have been held, and it should have cost a lot to take it.
Yes, even if they were not able to win the war, they had a chance not allow us to win.
Right, or to buy enough time to where the war would come to an end before Shusha was lost. That's, for me as a strategist, the time is always an aspect. That you can, in the urban area, bide time and just hold out for other things to happen.
And human lives as well, make it too costly.
Absolutely.
Before we go on, I will show you something. As you see, we're just on the edge of, we're in the northern part of Shusha. The roads you're seeing, it's the part of the Lachin corridor that goes parallel to the town, and you see it goes down to Hankendi, which is over there. And if you watch the way I'm showing you my finger, there is a sort of a monument on the roadside. You see, there is a tank standing there.
I do see
You
it.
see a white lorry, and
I do
just
see
to the
it,
right, yeah. That's an Armenian tank. It was shot in 1992 when the city was occupied. It was the first Armenian tank to enter the town, and it was shot by a national hero, Albert Agarunov. He's an Azerbaijani Jew who died when the town was defended. He was a tank commander, and he shot 2 tanks by 1 shot. He called it Jewish, how he called it? Jewish sandwich.
Oh, wow.
That's how it was called. That's a famous story. That's one of the tanks, and the crew was killed. I think 1 guy survived, and Armenians put it like a monument, and they still keep it there. So what is interesting, we're witnessing today the weather, which is more or less exactly the same how a year ago. And we are talking about urban warfare. It has a tremendous number of very serious factors that make the war more difficult in this area. But there is also weather. Weather, on one side, it makes it easier for an attacker also, because you see, you can defend a town pretty well, but once you see your enemy 50 meters in front of your position. And the same happened here.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what, usually if you're inside already the city, your one advantage, and I wrote what we call the 8 rules of urban warfare, is that you can see the attacker from far away, and he can't see you. The weather causes, just like the rain, to be able to close that distance, and once you get so close, and this is what we talk about when the close fight starts, some of the assets you had, the artillery inside the city,
useless.
The more you can't use it. And if you had technology like what we have now, drones, everything from small helicopters, quadcopters, they just don't work in this weather.
Okay, we have been to Dashalti and we'll show that later. How important the fog was, just if you watch from Shusha towards Dashalti. Let's walk and observe the enemy positions before we go on, because we have some interesting views from here. John, one more question. I made my own analysis, like I'm not a professional military, I'm a war reporter, and we have been for quite long in this business. I think that there were three critical factors of Azerbaijani success if we talk about Shusha operation. The first was the quality of mountain warfare training, because in my opinion, mountain warfare skills, they were as much as important in Shusha as urban warfare. In fact, there is a combination of mixture of mountainous warfare and urban warfare here. The second factor, in my opinion, it was the readiness of Azerbaijani troops to go into close combat, to give losses, they were ready for those losses, and they were ready to anything that close combat brings. And the third factor was infiltration, the factor of unexpectedness, because the enemy was expecting a frontal attack on Shusha or maybe a siege. But in fact, there was no siege. How it started not from an assault, it started from a fighting inside the town. There was no assault, in fact. It started inside the town. So Azerbaijani troops succeeded in mass infiltration. It was not like tactical groups infiltration. It was a big mass of troops that were split into a number of small groups, and they succeeded to infiltrate, what caused success at the end. Maybe I'm mistaken, but how important these factors are?
You're not mistaken. I think some of those are spot on and the same ones that I would assess in this operation. I mean, I think there's multiple phases. The approach, what we call the approach, the ability to get here unseen through the mountainous terrain. There's so many levels of this operation that are fascinating, and I think will be recorded in history as different in the amount of planning, the deception. So the biggest thing in war since Sun Tzu, since ancient time, is don't fight the way the enemy wants you to fight. So usually you have an urban defender and he wants you to frontal attack him into his defenses. But here you see multiple different approaches, which takes an amazing amount of skill at the lowest level of your military and the Azeri military soldiers to be able to infiltrate at night through the mountains, which isn't easy, undetected, and achieve what we call total surprise. And you're right, the infiltration, unlike some other battles, it's been in history, but what I found fascinating was the phases. Like the first phase was to cut off the city, so no support could come. And we saw that, right? We saw Azeri ambushes along the two main roads.
Also on this road as well, yeah.
That to me as a military guy is step one that you usually would do with a large force, right? You'd come with almost a siege force and cut off the resupply. That's so critical to people inside, and so critical to their psychology to know that there's no way out. Yeah. There's no hope for them. But like you said, they also what we call disrupted the defense by infiltrating dismounted forces, even over cliffs, which is amazing, inside the defense, to where the enemy doesn't know where they're coming from and literally looks all around, and he only expects them from one way, and now he's surrounded. Those aspects of the getting here undetected and through the mountains, but the cutting the city off so there's no hope, and then getting inside the defenses, so a lot of the weapons, and then like you're right, I think that last part of the individual soldiers' will to what we call close the distance to the enemy and to have that close fight and not just wait for bombs is so critical in urban fighting. And the speed, I think that last one, which we talked about earlier, the timing of this, the ability to do this rapidly is what caused the victory, I think, to come so fast, is that all those different forces were operating independently with an amazing plan, rapidly overwhelming the enemy's ability, what we say, to make a decision. We want to give him multiple problems in any operation. And you see that here. The enemy inside the city had multiple problems and had no ability to respond, and by the time he can, it's too late.
Okay, even if they lost the town, did they have a chance to take it back on the last day? because they were heavy counterattacks.
Absolutely, and that's one of the lessons I've taken from this battle that I'm trying to express to like the U.S. military. You can be a master at attacking a city, and this plan was a master plan, but you have to be able to hold the ground and go into the defense. And then we saw that here, like you said, that the counterattacks were not small. They were legitimate, and there was a risk to losing the city and all the work being lost. And in warfare, we say you have to be able to know the offense, but also be able to go into defense. And that's what I saw in this operation. The Azeri military transitioned to the defense very rapidly and was able to fend off those counterattacks, which were very strong counterattacks.
Mm-hmm. So, and that one more interesting point about that the counterattack, the major striking force were the heavy, was the armor, and they were just attacking along the road, but the losses in the armor were heavy, and so we could see it in videos that Armenians themselves distributed. One more question, and it's about the future. We're talking about the, it was probably early this year, the president of Azerbaijan said that Azerbaijani army is in the process. We initiated the transfer to the Turkish Armed Forces model. It's been discussed ever since by experts, by retired military in our country, and also some international experts, including Turks themselves. What do you consider, like, what does it mean, a shift towards the Turkish Armed Forces model for Azerbaijan, bearing in mind the possible future models of danger that we can face? Because we don't want to get ready for the previous war. I mean, what the future?
So that's a tough one. Probably the toughest question, since I'm not a regional expert. When I hear that, what I hear is basically the continued, what we say, modernization of the military, right? The best equipment in the world available, and what you saw in the Turkish model is a heavy investment in what we say professional military education. So continuing to professionalize the military. So when I hear that, that's what I hear, which is what we've seen, what I've seen in the Azerbaijan military over the last 10 years is this move to more schooling, more professionalizing, and more investment in the military, not just equipment. It's investing in the people, and that's a different model than some militaries have, and a bit different, especially conscripts and things like that.
Mm-hmm. John, we're in the downtown now. This is one of the major streets. There's two interesting buildings. One is destroyed during the First War, but still kept in the way it used to be. And this one is, you see an obvious prints of urban fighting here. That's why we've taken you here. Maybe this is a good evidence. And let's see where it looks like somebody was taking position inside the building, and bearing in mind that it was shot from Khan Kendi, it means that our guys were inside shooting somewhere over there, and there was an incoming fire. You as a military, what can you say?
So for me, you see different types of bullets and how big of a hole they put in the wall.
Oh, okay.
And then also for me is that you can see inside on the ceiling, the rounds are coming in.
Somebody was in there.
Yeah. So the rounds are not only hitting the walls, but they're all in through the windows. This is a very dangerous fight. And also, in my studies, the wall provides protection. Like, none of these are going through the walls.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, it didn't go in. But we have places where walls are destroyed, and we'll see them.
Okay.
Oh, we have even a piano here. Here we are. Yes.
Now you can see from the path of the bullet too, these are coming in the window and hitting, coming in, so you can see the direction of the bullet.
Maybe somebody was even there, because I don't think it was shot from behind of that building, so it was quite close combat.
Absolutely. And these are bigger rounds, as you can tell. So there's lots of fire, different types of weapons.
Some heavy caliber thing.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah, John, I think we're almost over with our guided tour around Shusha. Really nice. I learned myself new things talking to you. And I'm sure that you have really rich perceptions after this. I would like to ask you your perceptions now, but I know that the majority of that will be in the research and writing that you will do afterwards. But I see in your eyes, I see in the communication with you that you enjoyed it. And there is, I think, a lot of material for you to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a huge honor for me to be here. And I've had the opportunity to walk some battlefields, and you get like the understanding that you had. Researchers have to visit places to really get the true understanding. Even where we just were with the cliffs, and there's a media that it's just not possible. But you have to walk the ground and see how difficult it was. With understanding how war works, I couldn't get that without visiting.
For us, it's also interesting because we work with different people from different countries, and you were a first American researcher with a military background, an officer background. And the place you're representing, it's really interesting, and it's an honor for us as well. And I hope that the day will come in Azerbaijan that a generation of ex-officers, ex-military will grow up here, who will be researchers, think tank experts like you. And I'm a really fan of a think tank culture and military research culture that's really present in America. And you being here, for us, it's an honor as well. Thank you.
Thank you.